Well, again, everyone, welcome to Fantasy Football Insider. I'm Dan Labbe alongside Chris Fedor, and we are going to answer your fantasy football questions for the next 15, 20 minutes or so. We'll get you ready for Week 5. Yes, that's right. We are in Week 5 already. Some teams well on their way to a championship. Other teams, like mine, falling apart at the seams, 1 and 3. But that's all right. We're going to turn things around. We had a closed-door meeting, so we're gonna get things going in the right direction.
What was the message?
Here. The message was to score some points and stop playing teams that score 140.
That's right. It was actually 150.
150.
To be honest.
See, I didn't even check after Sunday.
Thank you, Larry Donnell. Who else did I have on that team?
You had, okay.
Thank you, Matt Asiata.
Yeah. We got to find the tape. We got to roll it back last week when you actually looked into that camera right there, and you said, Matt Asiata is bad at football.
Yeah. Yes, he is. He had 20 carries for 70 yards, but you know what he's good at? Short touchdown runs. 3 touchdowns for my boy Asiata. He's my boy now. He's my boy.
That was my downfall. Anyway, if you've got a question, scroll down to the comments, ask away down there, sign into your cleveland.com account or sign up for one quickly. It is free, so you don't have to worry about that. And Chris Fedor will give you your fantasy football advice as we go along. Now, Chris, there was something I wanted to do today because Bill Brandt came out with this NFL draft redraft. Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's way too early to do a redraft of the NFL.
Okay.
But that being said, it's never too early to look at fantasy football and do a redraft of fantasy football.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's what I want to do. I want to sit down and look at what we've seen so far this season. And I want to redraft a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
So instead of maybe Jamal Charles or LaShawn McCoy, number 1, maybe go a different direction.
Okay.
You look at a quarterback maybe. I know that's usually not your best advice, but there's been some quarterbacks that have put up big numbers. What are you doing at number 1 if we're doing the draft today, knowing what we know now?
I think it's a no-brainer, actually. I think through the first 4 weeks of fantasy football and in the NFL, he's been one of the best players. So we're going to go with DeMarco Murray, running back from the Dallas Cowboys. Right. You're talking about a guy, Dan, who has 4 straight 100-yard games, and he's got at least 1 touchdown in every game. Dallas is a team that has built up this new offensive line. It's a talented offensive line. It's a young offensive line. They're a team that wants to run the ball, take the ball out of the hands of Tony Romo so he can't commit too many turnovers, so that he can't continue to get dinged up the way that he was last year. So to me, DeMarco Murray is the best player that you could have in fantasy football for the remainder of the season.
Number 2, who are you taking after that?
This is going to surprise some people, but I think he's earned this one, and I like running backs who never come off the field. He gets 20 to 25 touches. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, Dan. He's their goal line back as well, and they're a team that I think is pretty good offensively. And because they have a specific weapon named Antonio Brown, defenses can't load up to try and stop this player. It's Le'Veon Bell from the Pittsburgh Steelers. To me, he's the second best option for the remainder of the season in fantasy football because of all the things that he can do, all the versatility that he brings. And think about this, Dan. If you're in a PPR league, it's a point per reception. Le'Veon Bell is somebody who gets 3 to 5 catches per game. In some scoring systems, that equates to a touchdown per game.
Yeah, that's big. And Ben Roethlisberger, we know he'll throw the ball to anybody. He's not going to lock onto a target. He's going to throw the ball to anybody and when he starts scrambling around.
Right, and eventually defenses are going to try and combat Antonio Brown because of how great he's been. They're going to have to try and put 2 guys on him or maybe roll coverage over towards Antonio Brown. That would just opens things up for Le'Veon Bell in the second half.
Number 3,
I got to stick with Jamal Charles. He went top 3 in most fantasy drafts, and even though he was injured, he has still earned that. He's still played well. Look at him last week. Yeah. That was his breakout game. It was a game that a lot of people expected. Multiple touchdowns in that game. He showed that he can still be a 15 to 20 carry guy. And Niall Davis is a talented guy. There's no question about that. But Andy Reid has always been somebody that has been good to running backs in fantasy football. Go back to his time in Philadelphia with Deuce Staley and Brian Westbrook, and then he was there for a little bit of LaShawn McCoy. Now he's got Jamal Charles, and I think Jamal Charles, as that Kansas City offensive line, which is young, it just came together this offseason, as it continues to come together, he's just going to get better and better and better, and you can't rely on Alex Smith to win you games in the NFL.
That is true. What are we at, number 4 now?
Yeah, number 4. I'll go with Matt Forte.
Okay.
Matt Forte was a guy that was probably a top 6 pick in most fantasy leagues. He's coming off a game where he had his best game last week. He hasn't gotten in the end zone. He's one of the guys of the big 5, big 6 that hasn't gotten in the end zone, which is very, very frustrating for fantasy owners because you want the touchdowns. But the beauty of Forte, Dan, is that he can get you points in a hurry even if he doesn't score touchdowns because he's like Le'Veon Bell. He's the goal line back. He catches the ball out of the backfield. There's nobody there that's going to take carries away from him. That's key to me. Not to mention, they've got Brandon Marshall. They've got Alshon Jeffrey, so they can't load up to stop Matt Forte the way that teams now can load up to stop LaShawn McCoy.
All right, round out my top 5.
I'm going Marshawn Lynch, and it was close to me because I love LaShawn McCoy. I think he's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, but there are some issues in Philadelphia. Number 1, they don't have that deep threat in Deshaun Jackson. Number 2, their offensive line is banged up, and it's not very good. So I'll go with Marshawn Lynch. Seattle's a team that wants to run the ball. He's a powerful dude. He's that 3-down running back. He never has to come off the field, and they're just going to continue to feed him over and over and over again because Seattle, they want to rely on the run and they want to play great defense. And for fantasy owners, that's big time. The other thing with Seattle, they're going to be up in a lot of games. That means they're going to have to run the ball to kill the clock, and that means Marshawn Lynch.
Let's round out the first round. Who are some guys, not going through 10, 12 picks, but just who are some guys that you think would go in the first round now that maybe didn't at the beginning of the year?
I think one guy that has a case for it, Dan, is Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's been one of the best fantasy wide receivers around, and in most drafts, Dan, you had Calvin Johnson go in the first round. You had Demaryius Thomas probably going in the first round. Jimmy Graham, the tight end from the Saints, he went in the first round. Of the wide receivers that were in the 3rd, 4th round, Antonio Brown has a case to be a first-round guy. He's Big Ben's go-to target. Big Ben on pace to throw for like 4,000 yards. Antonio Brown, nobody can cover him. That's what it's come down to. Joe Hayden got smoked by Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is beating every single corner that he's going up against. And Elteron Werner from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was a big-time free agent pickup for Tampa Bay coming from Tennessee. Antonio Brown just made him look silly over and over and over again. The talent is there, the opportunities are there, and he doesn't have a Brandon Marshall type guy to take catches away from him like Alshon Jeffrey does. He doesn't have Wes Welker to take catches away from him like Demaryius Thomas does or Julius Thomas taking those catches away. So Antonio Brown, I think, would have a case to be a first-round pick for sure.
Quarterbacks. What quarterbacks do you think go in the first round?
Peyton Manning still goes in the first round because Peyton Manning's Peyton Manning. He's still the best fantasy quarterback out there. He's the best NFL quarterback out there. But I think a guy that would probably go higher in redrafts, maybe even higher than Drew Brees at this point, is Andrew Luck. Because he is absolutely tearing it up. 300-yard games over and over again, multiple touchdowns over and over and over again. Indianapolis has learned, finally, that they don't have a running game that they can really rely on. Trent Richardson, we all know about that one. Ahmad Bradshaw dinged up. He's in a walking boot right now. So the offense has been put in the hands of Andrew Luck, and he's delivering. He's got targets to throw to. He's got 2 tight ends, Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen. He's got wide receivers, Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, Hakeem Nicks. And the beauty of Andrew Luck, he's going to get you 30 to 40 yards rushing as well, which could equate to a touchdown.
Andrew Luck, last year we talked about him a lot, and really this year too, a guy that you love as your quarterback in real life, not so much in fantasy. Well, it looks like he's taken that next step. He's putting up the numbers to go along with the wins. The
other thing that you love about Andrew Luck from a fantasy perspective, Dan, their defense in Indianapolis, not very good. So they're going to get into shootouts. They're going to have to score 30 to 40 points just to win games. That means more Andrew Luck.
Yeah, we saw that last year in the playoffs against Kansas City.
You're right.
Having to come back big in a shootout and beat them. Andrew Luck seems up to the task. Any real surprises in your first round now that you wouldn't even have thought about, guys that could be first round quality, and all of a sudden here they are?
Well, DeMarco Murray is certainly one, because a lot of people were concerned, number one, about his injuries. That's first and foremost. And number two, some people were concerned about just Lance Dunbar maybe taking some carries away or some catches away. I think people are concerned about Dallas overall. How healthy is Tony Romo going to be? How good is that offensive line going to be? There are questions about Dallas coming into the year. I know in most drafts, DeMarco Murray was an early second-round pick, mid-second-round pick. Now you're talking about a guy who would probably go first overall in redrafts. And another one that I think could sneak in just because of the value of running backs. Running backs always go high in fantasy football. There's no question about that. Giovanni Bernard, with the way that he has played, he's averaging something like 20 points per game in fantasy football. A lot of people were concerned about Cincinnati because they said, wait a minute, they just used another draft pick on another running back in Jeremy Hill. Is that going to cut into Giovanni Bernard? Is that going to be a running back by committee? No, no, no. The running back position belongs to Giovanni Bernard. He is the backfield for Cincinnati. And hey, Jeremy Hill is going to have some kind of role. He's probably going to get 7 to 10 carries. But Gio is a guy who's explosive enough, and he's talented enough, and he's involved enough in the passing game, whereas even if he doesn't get 25 touches, he makes the most out of that opportunity. And the thing about Gio this year, Dan, something that is different than what a lot of people thought, he's in there at the goal line. He's getting carries inside the 5-yard line, and he's cashing in on those goal line opportunities.
Cincinnati, another one of those teams, they score a lot of points.
You're right.
And they're another team that could find themselves in some shootouts as the season goes along.
I recommend, if you're in a fantasy league, try and trade for Gio Bernard. Put a bug in the ear of the owner saying, hey, they drafted Jeremy Hill. He's going to cut into Gio's time. Gio's only 5'8". He's going to get hurt. But Cincinnati learned last year, Dan, they need Gio on the field because it's an extra element to that offense. Takes pressure off of A.J. Green. He's not going anywhere unless he gets hurt, of course.
Let's look at a couple other positions where, maybe some first-round talent hasn't done as well. Some second, third-round guys have kind of stepped in to fill those voids. What about the tight end position? There's some guys that are kind of making a name for themselves. Obviously, you've got the traditional guys that you always watch, but there's some other guys out there that have had some big games so far.
You're absolutely right, and a guy that comes to mind is Larry Donnell. How many people drafted Larry Donnell from the New York Giants? Not very many.
No.
A lot of people thought, hey, maybe Kyle Rudolph is a guy beyond round 6 that could emerge and be a top 5 fantasy tight end. He's hurt. It's not him. The guy that has emerged out of nowhere this year, the way that Julius Thomas did last year, is Larry Donnell. He's a talented guy. Eli Manning has always loved throwing to his tight ends. And Larry Donnell, folks, he is here to stay. As New York continues to get better and they continue to figure out their offense, they could be this year's San Diego Chargers. And Larry Donnell could be this year's Julius Thomas from last year at the tight end spot. When you score 3 touchdowns and you have 7 catches in one game, you've caught my attention, that's for sure.
Defenses, who do you like?
Seattle is terrific. Everybody knows about Seattle, but one that I think too many people are sleeping on is Detroit. Detroit, surprisingly, has a terrific defense. Who thought that? Exactly. Coming into the year, nobody expected Detroit to be that good. And the other one is Arizona. Arizona is a defense that lost Darrell Washington. They lost Darnell Dockett, and they're still one of the best fantasy defenses around because they get sacks, they create turnovers, they don't give up a lot of yardage, they don't give up a lot of points. Arizona is a defense that I really, really like. Now, it's risky this week, so if somebody maybe dropped a defense like Arizona because they're playing against the Denver Broncos, be proactive, be one of those smart owners, go pick up Arizona. Don't use them this week against Denver, but roll them out for the rest of the season.
All right, let's get to it. Let's do some starts and sits. Who are you absolutely starting this week?
Well, one guy that I absolutely love, like I said, is Giovanni Bernard, and I think we've gotten to a point where not enough people are starting Gio. I think there are certain guys, Dan, in fantasy football that you start them no matter what is going on. And I think Giovanni Bernard is certainly turning into one of those guys for the Bengals. Some people worry about matchups too often. I wouldn't worry about a matchup with Gio because, like I said, he is going to get touches. He is going to get touches near the goal line. And those are the things that you absolutely want. Another one, I wouldn't be worried about it this week. Again, I don't think he's a great player. But great player and great fantasy football players, sometimes it's not the same thing. Matt Asiata has a great matchup tonight against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. Green Bay is 32nd against the run. Teddy Bridgewater unlikely to play for Minnesota tonight, so that means they're not going to put the ball in the hands of Christian Ponder. We all know that. It's probably going to be in the hands of Matt Asiata. I think it's a good game coming from him.
Are you even going to watch the game tonight? With Teddy out and Asiata starting, are you even going to be able to sit there and watch that game?
I'm so hurt. I was so excited about it, right? Because I knew that Minnesota was playing on Thursday Night Football, and I said, oh, I got Teddy. I get to watch Teddy in prime time. No, it's probably not going to happen. Yes, I'll still watch it because in a lot of my leagues, I have Aaron Rodgers as my fantasy quarterback. So I'll watch him, and I'll just watch the points pile up. It's going to be a hoot.
Sits. Who are you staying away from?
All right. Well, look, we've gone over this before. Dan, I'm nervous about Monty Ball, okay? We've talked a lot about Monty Ball, and I thought he had a chance. He went in the first round in a lot of fantasy drafts, right around 10 to 12. We've talked a lot about Monty Ball and how he could be the no Sean Moreno, and he could benefit because so many teams are worried about Peyton Manning in that Denver passing game. He's been really bad, really bad. His average per carries right around 3.5, and that's playing in Denver where you should be able to run the ball. Not to mention, the matchup's just not good. Arizona is a top 5 run defense. Arizona is a defense that has held Frank Gore in check, and Frank Gore is more talented than Monty Ball. So even though he's coming off the bye, he's going to have fresh legs. Maybe they worked on some things in the bye. I'd stay away from Monty Ball. It's not a great matchup playing against Arizona. Another guy, sneaky play. I know we're talking about sits right now, but a sneaky start, Bishop Sankey from the Tennessee Titans. Every time he's gotten an opportunity, Dan, he's performed well, and everybody runs against the Browns this year.
All you need to know is Lorenzo Taliaferro. I mean, who was that guy? And he rushed for 90-plus yards against the Browns.
You know another sneaky play, too, for me, Dan? It's a tough matchup. It's playing against Cincinnati. I think Stephen Ridley is going to be a sneaky play, not just this weekend, but I think moving forward. Because Tom Brady can't do it anymore. They can't just play huck-a-chuck. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the offensive line. I think if New England wants to win, if they want to get back to the playoffs, they have to turn to old school football. And that means pounding Stephen Ridley, the most talented running back that they have, 20 to 25 times. Tough matchup against Cincinnati. But Ridley, I think, is somebody that New England is going to need for the rest of the year if they want to win the AFC East.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of Fantasy Football Insider. Of course, Sunday at around noon, you can check cleveland.com/Browns. I will have a podcast with Chris Fedor up for some last-minute fantasy football advice.
Come on, Monty Ball. Let's pick it up here, bud. Come on. I used a first-round pick on you.
There you go. Hey, I'm 1-3.
Yeah,
so don't complain.
That's true. I'm 3-1. I guess I'll take it, even though he's struggling.
All right. Join us every Thursday, of course, at 12:30 to get your fantasy football advice. And you can tweet at Chris Fedor as well, and he can answer any of your fantasy questions. For Chris Fedor, I'm Dan Labbe.